Janitorial Manager presents the Business of Cleaning podcast, the podcast that brings you the information you need to be successful in the cleaning industry. The Business of Cleaning podcast provides in-depth interviews with successful personalities from the commercial cleaning industry, as well as discussing the trending topics that matter to you and your organization. And welcome into the Business of Cleaning podcast, your number one source for information on the commercial cleaning industry. We release new episodes monthly, live from the Janitorial Manager Studios, located in Toledo, Ohio. I'm Tim Glagg, the Marketing Communications Specialist here at Janitorial Manager, and your host of the Business of Cleaning podcast. This month, we are welcoming in Sharon Cowan, owner of Cleaning Business Consulting Group, podcast host to the Polishing Profits, and a certified building service executive. There's only approximately around 200 of those in the world. Sharon, we're so excited to have you a part of this month's episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm just so excited to be here.
And you've got a fun story to tell, and it starts inside the classroom. You were teaching at the high school and collegiate level business and fashion merchandising. How rewarding was it? I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for teachers, kind of given me and instilled some of the confidence that I have now, just for them believing in me and showing up. What was it like for you to be able to impact the lives of youth then by sharing your passions with them?
Well, it's interesting because I'm doing a lot of that same thing now as coaching. You're really teaching and impacting the lives. It was great. I wasn't as excited about the high school level as I was with the college level. I taught mostly the business classes, service related kinds of things at the college level. But I find that at that level, they're really eager to learn. At the high school level, they're just there because I have to be.
Right.
So it's a little different. Kind, and that transfers over to my coaching because they're eager to learn now. So it's the same. I'm doing the same thing I did 30 years
ago. And then after teaching, you had a great opportunity to travel. And I mean, you said you were traveling 5 days a week, and you went into working for a huge merchandising field for numerous national change, and had a lot of success in over 88 million in sales responsible.
Yes, I had the Southeast United States was my territory. So I traveled again the 5 nights a week, and my children were growing, so it wasn't so much a matter of childcare problems or anything like that. My husband was sitting home alone 5 nights a week. I was in a hotel room, and after so many nights of that, you wake up the next morning saying, what city am I in today? Even though it's rewarding, it got really old after a while. I loved that business, and I learned so much, which we'll get into in a little bit, from that industry. Margins are very different, but anyway, I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the travel just got to me, and I knew I wanted my own business. I just wanted to use my skills in a different way.
Do you have a particular moment where you remember the day where it popped up? You said, I've enjoyed doing this for 5 years, been so successful, but you know what? I'm ready for a new challenge. Do you remember when that day happened?
Actually, yes, because the people who were cleaning my house mentioned to me, I was home, working at home that day, and they said to me, "Oh, you're home." And I said, "Yeah, I'm off the road a little bit. I'm really getting tired of it." And they said, "Well, I think this business is for sale." And I thought, okay, a service business in a service business town. Let me find out more about this. This sounds really interesting. So I did.
And I think the story too, when you started to research it and gather information, this was a company very small that was, matter of fact, being run out of the owner's front porch of their house?
Yes, it was a mom and pop through and through. They had been in business for many years and had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of regular customers, and they did house cleaning, and they didn't do much commercial work, and they did pressure cleaning. And I called the owner after I found out it might be for sale. She said, yes, come in, let's talk. She gave me an opportunity to just hang out with her for a month, so that I could get a feel for what the business was all about and whether I would really like it or not. One of the days I remember, and remember, I'm coming from fashion merchandising,
Mm-hmm.
where I wear suits and heels and dress
Yeah.
up all day. So one of the days early on in our month process, she said, "Come on in tomorrow. I'll take you out to a post-construction cleaning job site. Just wear something comfortable." Okay, so I did. Well, we got into her truck, which was kind of an old rust bucket, and she had a hard hat there for me. And we're bouncing down the dirt roads to this construction site. And all that went through my mind is, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What what have I gotten myself into? This this is like so foreign to me. And yet we went. It was very interesting. She knew all the subcontractors and everybody working on the job, and it was it was great. And I saw the opportunity, and that's what kept me being so interested in this business and so driven, because I saw the opportunity. Back in at that period of time, we didn't do any digital marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was by phone on the old yellow pages. So that's really going back. But that phone rang off the wall, and she had all kinds of leads and all kinds of opportunities coming in there. And thought to myself, this is like a gold mine,
Mm-hmm.
just waiting to be unleashed. And all it needs some structure, it needs some business theory and strategy. It needs to be run like a business, not out of their front porch. Bless their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they did it. So we moved forward, and I negotiated with her for probably 7 months. We
Oh,
went back and
wow.
forth on the price because they started up way over the moon. And I said, really, what are you selling me? You have nothing
Yeah.
here but leads and opportunity. So we finally came to a deal, and I bought it.
In your prior experience in merchandising and in business teaching as well, what were the biggest things that allowed you to quickly adapt into the industry? I mean, it's service to service, going from what you were used to, but a different industry. What allowed you to adapt rather quickly?
Well, for one thing, I'm a lifelong learner. Okay,
Hmm.
I love to read and learn. So I joined every organization that was available. ARCSI was not around then. There was something called the American Maid Service Association out of Texas. I joined that. I joined the building service contractors because they were really the only ones who had conventions, and I
Hmm.
went there and learned. I learned everything I could about the business. My In the retail business, the profit margins are very slim. So you have to be keenly tuned into your financials. Okay, that's a huge part of success in retail, well, in any business. So I brought those skills with me.
Yeah.
I really got into the numbers and the financials and the organizations, the standard operating procedures, the SOPs. They didn't have any. So I knew that we had to put together policies, procedures. We had to run it like a real business.
Yeah.
And I had that training in retail.
And when you purchased at that time, there were 6 employees.
Yes.
You took the business from 6 employees to over 140 strong.
Mhm.
How are you able to scale successfully to get and achieve that kind of success? You mentioned the leads were there, right? Phone
Yes.
kept ringing off the hook. Just they didn't
Yeah.
have enough bodies to be able to send to all these different locations.
Hmm.
Where did you attack scaling?
The first, that's the next a wonderful question. The first place I attacked was the structure of the company. I knew that I was learning the business and I couldn't manage the people in the field. The six, even only six, I
Yeah.
couldn't grow that and manage that without some help. So I was very fortunate in that I didn't take a salary for the first 6 to 8 months that I owned the business. Um, and I instead brought in a manager. Okay, right away, month three, I think I had the manager, and she helped. She had previously owned a cleaning business in
Hmm.
Maryland. She had moved to Florida. So I brought her on board as a cleaner and then quickly promoted her to a manager. And she took care of the field staff. She took care of any complaints. She took care of the training, which freed up my time
Yeah.
to move forward and plan and organize and grow the business.
How important is it? And I'm sure you can't stress enough. This was a new venture for you, but for new owners right now that are just getting in the industry or thinking about purchasing a cleaning operation, going out and getting people to have experience in areas where you may not. So not only can they put those experiences in your company, but you can also kind of double dip and learn from them at that same time. How
Mhm.
important is that?
Oh, that's really important. And I think the key is being able to comfortably and successfully delegate. And you have to be feel good in your skin
Hmm.
to give up some of the control and turn that over to others. You have to have oversight, but many young entrepreneurs feel that another person can't do the job as well as they can. And that's very common. They feel nobody cleans as well as I do. Well, that may be, but your job is to grow the company
Yeah.
and make the company profitable and survive. Your goal is not necessarily to be the best cleaner. You can hire best cleaners, but you are the one that is counted on to grow the business and grow the profit and keep it going. So having entrepreneurs learn that is sometimes difficult. They just don't want to give it up, and that's one of the key is that ability to delegate successfully and step away.
Is that too? I'm interested. Is that a specific age range? Because you've worked with a lot of different ranges of ages from the 30 to 40 group, or people that are coming in and investing some of their retirement in another business opportunity, and maybe in their 50s. So, which group would you say is a little bit more challenging to get that cross?
I would say the younger group, the 30s to
Hmm.
by the time they're in their 50s and have worked in business, they pretty much understand the importance of delegating. They aren't necessarily good at it and don't necessarily like it, but they know that they need to do it.
Hmm.
Um, they tend to be a little more set in their ways. Whereas the younger entrepreneur is like the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed little squirrel wants to learn anything, and that they typically want to learn. They just don't have the experience.
Right.
So, but they're willing to try new things.
You had mentioned that you necessarily didn't enjoy the residential side of things, and you kind of found out you enjoy the commercial cleaning side of things a little bit more. Uh, what kind of, talking about the comparison, what kind of things did you enjoy when you started branching out where you realized, you know what, I kind of like working a little bit more better in commercial cleaning side of things?
Yeah, I think it was the difference was working B2B
Hmm.
versus a consumer uh, um, homeowner who tends to, I mean, you're handling their personal lives. You're
Yeah.
handling Aunt Susie's favorite mug that she gave them. So it's much more detailed and much more opportunity to have complaints and issues rather than commercial. I enjoyed I enjoyed both, but I handed off the residential first so I could focus on the commercial growth. And that's what really gave us our revenue and our volume. But dealing with the business person, it's a little more cut and dried. It's not personal. Just clean my office. That's all.
Right.
I have somebody in here and clean my office. Here's what I want you to do. A lot of them don't pay well or do pay well. It's the same as the residential
Mhm.
in that aspect. They're just easier to manage because their expectations are different.
We're talking with Sharon Cowan, owner of Cleaning Business Consulting Group, podcast co-host of Polishing Profits. After 15 years, successful 15 years, you were ready for a new venture. This time, it was coaching in the industry and taking all that experience, what you've learned, and helping others into the industry and welcoming them. You've been at this a long time. What are some of the joys that you get out of helping eager people? You mentioned, especially, we're seeing a lot more 30 to 40-year-olds coming in this industry with not necessarily a lot of ownership experience or industry experience. So what challenges do you look forward to when somebody comes to you?
It's interesting because the people that are startup clients, okay, are a little more demanding because you have to teach them more, but
Yeah.
they are the ones that get most excited. I like to connect and engage with my clients. We have our weekly phone calls or so, but then there's emailing that goes on in between because when they're excited about something, they land an account, they hire that right person. I want to get on board and get excited with them about it. I like to engage with them and make them feel they have a partner in their
Hmm.
journey. And that's the satisfaction that I get out of it. And they will typically try whatever ideas you send their way. Let's try this, let's try that. Because they don't really know whether that's going to work or not, so they're more willing. Whereas the more experienced client might be a little hesitant. And they
Hmm.
may say, well, I tried that, 15 years ago and it didn't work, so I'm not going to try it today. So convincing them that, okay, this 15 years later, let's give this a try.
Right.
So it's just a little bit different. And then I do a lot of work with turnarounds, companies that are in trouble, and they come to me and they're not making profit. They've got terrible staffing problems, which a lot of people do right now.
Yeah.
And how do we fix the problem? So, it's a couple of different kinds of coaching that require different skills.
Right now, we've seen a lot of companies reap the benefits of the industry within having success in the last 5, 10 years from financial growth, profit, from their cleaning successes. How can that small to mid-sized cleaning company scale their operation without overexerting, overextending financially? If they're ready to take that next step, if they're ready for
Mhm.
that first million or going from 1 million to 3 million.
Most of that is my strategy and my feeling that it requires keen attention to their financials and budgeting. I would say probably 70% of my clients before I worked with them never did a budget. They never
Oh,
did an
wow.
annual budget. A good 40% are not comfortable with a profit and loss statement. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs there that are flying blind, okay, just going by the seat of their pants and hoping that it's going to turn out okay.
Oh,
And that's not something that's going to sustain a
yeah.
business long term. I mean, you really need to have budgeting in place. And my belief is that a budgeting is a live document and it needs to be reviewed and adjusted as a year goes on. But a budget for revenue, a budget for expenses, uh, is paramount to your success. And then monitoring the financials when you're a startup, I recommend monitoring your financial reports, your P&L and your cash
Hmm.
flow report at least every week. Once you're a little more established after the first year, then you can back off and do it monthly. But your financials should be available to you at the click of a button, whether you use QuickBooks or another software.
Right.
You should have them up to date so that at any given time, I, as a coach, could call and say, what do you have in so far for the month? How is the profit looking for the month? And I ought to be able to get an answer.
Especially right now, rising costs, the
Yes.
uncertainty of today's Thursday. What does Friday hold because of all the changes worldwide we're kind of seeing right now? And so, do you think that we will see people be looking at their budgets more often than ever before right now because of a big question mark looming over so many things?
Well, we would hope so. We would hope that that's the case. If their head is buried in the sand and they don't know, um, no, they're not going to. Uh, but the savvy owner is going to realize that the profit margins are shrinking
Hmm.
in many cases, and not 100%, but in many cases because of possible market demands, the cost of labor in any given market, and that's our number one cost in this industry. So that's the most controllable number you have. So watching those numbers becomes really your lifeline to survival. Keeping a keen watch on budgeting and on your numbers. And many owners sadly are working at a deficit in that area. Financial intelligence is so important, and people run from it because they don't like math. So,
Right.
but get the help, get somebody to help you.
Having clear company policies and procedures can protect a cleaning owner and their company from some very difficult situations. What are some of the most essential policies every cleaning company should have in place?
I would have to say that human resource policies, anything to do with the people are
Hmm.
your commodity, and that's your cost of goods. That's everything in your business revolves around your staff and your cleaning. So having the human resource policies in terms of um, attendance, paid time off, what to do with maternity leave. I
Hmm.
just was working with someone last week who's got an old policy that allows quite a bit of time off for maternity leave, and he's finding that's really strangling his company, and it's just too much. So time to review and time to sit down. And a lot of times when an issue pops up, that's when you review the policy. But under normal circumstances, you want to look at them every year minimum, and bring your team in, bring your management team in, and find out your field supervisors, find out what are you hearing from the people. You know, what are you hearing
Hmm.
rumblings about this? We don't get paid for this, or we do get paid for this, and it's not enough. Whatever you're hearing, that usually sparks changes in your policy. But I would say human resource policies are the most important.
What are some common mistakes that some of these cleaning businesses make when implementing new procedures, and how can they uh, get these new policies without any issues?
Well, a lot of times they don't get ahead of it, and there are rumors running around, and our in our industry, we're famous for having the gossip mills amongst the people, and it causes a lot of problems. So getting out ahead of it
Hmm.
and making a very um, easy to understand presentation so that the people are on board and understand what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. And not allowing time for people, and you have to bring your team. If there are other people working on a policy change with you, you have to swear them to secrecy. They cannot discuss this with the staff until you are ready to roll it
Right.
out. Like the rollout's the important piece.
You've gone through the process firsthand selling your own cleaning company and also helping so many people go through that same process. There's so many steps. What are the key steps when you first start preparing to sell your cleaning business?
Well, having a well-run operation overall
Hmm.
is a key. But having all of your records up to date, having your financials up to date, having your tax forms up to date with CPA, all of your tax filings, and having your standard operating procedures in place. People will pay more for a business when there is a very clear turnkey operation. People won't pay a lot for a mess that they have to
Hmm.
clean up. And so having your structure in place is the most important thing. You can work with your accountant to help you with those things. I help with those things as well. Getting your house in order, so to speak,
Yeah.
before you put it on the market. Otherwise, and you don't have to do that, but you're not going to get much money for it if you don't.
What are some things that owners can do to maybe increase their company's value before selling? Like, hey, what are some things we can do maybe in 4 or 6 months before we look to put this on the market? Because sometimes we hear in big business things that they do, but what is it different, or what are some things that people can do to try and increase the value overall?
Well, you can add to the structure that you have. Let's say you have a week training program. You can beef that up and make sure that's in writing and that's something that everybody would want to
Hmm.
see. Again, this goes to your operating procedures, making sure all of your office equipment is up to date and functioning, working well, um, making sure your physical office is attractive and welcoming if that's indeed where they're going to keep the business. Um, a lot of cosmetic things that make it very appealing and very appetizing to a prospective buyer. Buyers are looking typically to draw a salary right away,
Hmm.
and they are looking for an ease of operation, especially the older buyers. Okay, they just want to walk in, take over, and start drawing a paycheck
Hmm.
and run the business. That's where their heads are usually. So making it as desirable as possible for the buyer.
We kind of touched about making sure you have records, financial records, documents. What legal and compliance considerations should owners be aware of before selling?
Not speaking as a legal person
Right.
and not giving legal advice. Uh, I would say compliance with government regulations, that you're in compliance. You don't have a lot of taxes that are not paid, taxes that are not filed, staying legal, looking at your safety. That's huge in our industry, is safety compliance with OSHA, making sure that you have the proper signage that you're supposed to
Yeah.
have for that, and that you're doing the proper trainings. Those kinds of things are important.
And of course, in this situation, too, another important factor, of course, the employees. When a seller is looking to move the business to turn, maybe retire, or what their next chapter is, how can the seller, the owner of the company, protect their employees and their clients during this transition?
Well, that's a tough one because I don't believe that there's any way you truly can protect them. You can, and you don't want to make unfound promises. to
Hmm.
them and say there won't be any changes. I mean, that happened when I bought the business. We made sweeping changes very gradually and very slowly, so we didn't have total walkouts, but we did update and make some changes, and we lost a few people. We more than that, we lost a few customers because we
Sure.
raised prices. They were underpricing so badly, it made no sense to do these jobs. So I was okay mentally as the new owner saying, I have to make a change here, and I will replace these low paying customers with higher paying new customers. So that's okay. We're not going to clean a house for $40.
Hmm.
That's gonna happen. So um, there isn't, in all honesty, there is not a good way to save employees or clients
Hmm.
from that. You just have to approach it in a reasonable, common sense, kind manner with explanations.
Are there any big mistakes that you've kind of seen owners make when selling their cleaning company where you're kind of like, geez, I would have avoided this, or how you can avoid something like that happening?
Well, again, I think transparency and keeping everything open and above board as you go through the process, not making any promises. You can't really make promises for a new owner and what they're going to do.
Mm.
Once you sign on the dotted line, you're out of it and you're really done. So
Right.
you have to depend on that new owner that they have the values, which hopefully that has come out in your conversations with them, that they are going to treat your people the way you would have and the way that you would expect. But there is no guarantee that that's going to happen. When I sold my business, I went with the new owner to my key customers. Okay, we scheduled meetings with my not the residential, but the commercial
Yeah.
customers. We scheduled meetings and I introduced him. And luckily he came with about 20 some years in the industry, working in New York City for a huge janitorial company. So he knew what he was talking about and he knew he could win them over, and that smoothed the way. So I think when it comes to commercial customers, taking your new owner around and introducing them and gives a sense of comfort that, okay, it just isn't John Smith that's going to take over as the new owner now. I have
Yeah.
met John Smith and I have confidence that he will take care of me. So again, that communication and that networking to put everybody at a comfortable level works.
I'm reading a book right now called Legacy about just how sometimes entrepreneurs don't really look at how they want their legacy to be. You've done so many great things impactful in this industry, from your coaching to owning. What do you want your legacy to be in this
Wow.
industry?
I would say someone that was passionate about the industry, saw the value of clean, but above that was truly an entrepreneur
Mm.
and truly loved the business of doing business.
And
No,
and further, I'm going in the book too. I'm really astonished because it focuses on entrepreneurs that a lot of entrepreneurs don't really think about this, or haven't. Yeah, I'm just doing this for a paycheck or something like
Mhm.
that. But I was just amazed in some of the reading so far is how not a lot of people really think about this
Yeah.
question. I loved your response. We're through Q1 so far of 2025. Of course, you're busy with your podcast with Mark. He was a guest of the show back in November of 2023,
Okay.
and we're through Q1 of 2025. What are some new or problems you see or issues arising in the industry overall that necessarily haven't been talked about, or obviously, as you mentioned, staffing and keeping staff employed is still a big one across the United States?
I would say that that's still the biggest. Business is there to be had every day, all day long. There are I don't feel that there's a shortage of business. It's a little it's always competitive. Um, but being able to offer your customers a quality service, cleaning for health, and that's the focus now. No
Yeah.
longer is it cleaning for appearance, but cleaning for health, and keeping your employees motivated and engaged, and not necessarily just throwing money at them to get them to come on board, but giving them a lifestyle and a culture and a work-life balance
Yeah.
is so important to them. That has changed over the years. Because when I had my business, it was just, oh, please come in and work tonight. We didn't give a whole lot of thought to employee engagement and employee, how was their life outside of work and how could I help that? And that trend has really developed over the years. I mean, we see more and more companies fully engaging with employees, especially I find that to be true in the residential section. Residential owners are really good at that. They're really good at taking care of their employees. Commercial companies, I'd give them a C, in that C plus, maybe
Yeah.
B minus, but residential people get an A for that, for doing that.
Well,
But taking care of the employee is going to be is where it's at right now. I mean,
how can we turn that? How can we, the next, say, 5-year marker, get that from a C, a C plus to an A, A minus in the commercial cleaning side of things? What do you see from, attending shows to speaking with business owners on your show? How are you seeing, how can it change to that A?
I see, and one company in particular in Tampa comes to mind, a huge janitorial company, and they do an outstanding. In fact, there's another one in Washington State that does an outstanding job
I
too.
think I know who that gentleman is. I'm
And
going to take a guess.
probably,
Edwin Eaton?
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That one, and there's a couple of others that really take care of their employees, but they are mimicking some of the things that the residential people do. They are celebrating the birthdays and
Mhm.
celebrating the anniversaries and having performance award programs, giving out certificates. Many more are getting on board with the importance of that, whereas that has not necessarily been true of the commercial sector,
Yeah.
not as much as the residential sector. So I think continuing to do that, continuing to care about the employees. When you care, they know. And when you don't care, they're going to go somewhere where someone will take care of them.
And some of the examples too I've seen kind of expanding is company outings. Hey, we're going to
Yes.
go to a
Mm-hmm.
baseball game. We're going to go,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, we're going to sponsor Dave's son's T-ball team or something like that.
Yes,
And
that's
actually
huge.
going that extra layer and having those conversations and getting to know them outside what things they're interested in and what hardships they may currently
Mm-hmm.
be dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and developing that personal connection and going above as you're just a cleaner for me. It really
Right,
goes a long way.
right. I mean, even back in the 90s when I had my business, we did an employee appreciation day.
Hmm.
And we had a brunch and an award ceremony and door prizes. And I'll never forget the one woman who won a microwave oven that cost the company $80, I think. You would have thought that she won gold. It was the best thing that happened to her in forever. And I will never forget that feeling that that we gave her such joy.
Yeah.
And she was committed to us. She really, now we had her as an employee and she was committed. So those kinds of things. I always sponsor little league youth sports
Right.
activities. And when you sponsor them, it just makes sense. There are eyeballs on your company name on the back of the
Bingo.
shirt 3 times a week, and you get a banner out on the
Hmm.
field with your company. I mean, and it's cheap. And so many
Right.
people won't even think of that. It's a great marketing tool.
Well, Sharon, I'm really greatly appreciative of you coming on this month's episode and talking to us from the owner perspective to your coaching experience. And I'm excited for listeners to listen to this story. How can our listeners connect with you? I know you and I are connected on LinkedIn. They can connect with you there. Where else can they reach out with you if they're interested in coaching or they have any additional questions that they would like to connect with you?
My website, cleaningbusinessconsultinggroup.com. It's long, but it's very searchable. You know, um, Sharon at cleaningbusinessconsultinggroup.com is great. Or the Polishing Profits podcast, just Polishing Profits. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all the places where you would listen to a podcast. Those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
And over 140 years combined experience between you and the other two hosts. Believe me, I listen because I'm a sponge here trying to know what questions to ask the experts like yourself. And
Right.
I can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise, your passion with us and with our listeners here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
it's been great.
that will conclude this month's edition of the Business of Cleaning podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast from. Also, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and your comments. From everyone at Janitorial Manager, our guest, Sharon Cowan, I'm Tim Clagg saying so long until next time.